There's something rustling in that bush. It's a cardinal. And the fact that he's coming out of that cedar can only mean one thing. There's a nest inside and a couple of speckled eggs. This cardinal and his mate are ready to raise a family. Hello everybody, my name is Lori, and this is a Minnesota backyard where we look at the small joys and simple wonders found right in our own backyard. Well, for the past month, the birds have been very busy building their nests and raising their families. And now here in early June, most of them have fledged out their first set of chicks. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the birds that have been so busy with their homes and their families. It all begins with building a nest. Here a robin gathers mud, which she uses as a cement to hold together the twigs and grasses and plant fibers that she uses to construct her nest. Notice how she shapes the inside of her nest with her body. So it needs to be comfortable for those weeks that she's going to incubate her eggs, and a nice home for her chicks when they hatch. So I've seen robins favor ledges as a place to build their nest, like the beams under the deck, for example, or even this very precarious surface on the top of this light fixture. It's 3 days since I first noticed the cardinal's nest, and now 2 chicks have hatched. Now, to be honest with you, I am not quite sure if the cardinal is raising cardinal babies or cowbird babies. For the last couple of years, I've noticed a pair of cardinals that have been suckered into raising a cowbird baby. And the eggs of the cardinals and cowbirds look very much alike. And when we were looking at that nest earlier, we were noticing that one of the eggs was bigger than the other. They're both speckled like cardinal eggs, but one was bigger. So I don't know if we're going to see cardinals or cowbirds out of there. But one way or the other, those baby chicks are growing fast and they need food. Here we see a chickadee looking for food for its babies. It looks like the hunt was successful. Chickadees tend to build nests in cavities, and the side molding at the corners of my house seem to be an ideal nest site for them. Over the years, they have built their nests in a new corner around my house and garage. Just listen to that chatter. Can you see all 5 chicks in there? Chicks grow very quickly, and to fuel that growth, they need a lot of protein, which they get from insects. Studies from the University of Minnesota and other universities around the country have looked at the number of insects needed to raise one brood of chickadees, and the numbers are really startling. Anywhere between 5,000 and 7,000 insects to raise one brood of chicks. So one way to ensure that there's insects in the backyard is to raise native plants. So native trees, shrubs, flowering plants, grasses, they all play a part to host the native insects that form that vital first link in the food chain. So to have healthy birds, you need healthy insect populations, and native plants can help. 5 days after hatch, the cardinal babies, or cowbird babies, I still don't know, are growing fast and they're filling the nest. It'll soon be time to leave. Here a wren calls to her babies to encourage them to leave the nest. This baby is doing its best, but it is tricky to navigate the obstacle course presented by this planter. Wrens are really one of my favorite birds. I just love their scratchy little voices and their long tails that they carry nearly straight up. Now this baby's tail still has some growing to do, but you can see that it is pointing up. The chickadees are getting ready to leave the nest as well. Off in the distance, you can hear the parent calling to the chick to encourage it to fly out of the nest. And there he goes. Now eventually all the chicks are going to meet the parents up in the trees, but this little guy has found his way to the ground. It's hard work leaving the nest, so here he is to take a little break before he joins his parents. Now, just because the babies are out of the nest doesn't mean that the parents' work is finished. Here's that cardinal baby, or possibly a cowbird baby. Honestly, I still don't know. But he's waiting in the tree, and there is Dad gathering his next meal. That distinctive trill that babies make as they beg for food is a really common sound now throughout the yard and neighborhood at this time. Here we can see the robin fledgling begs a treat from his mother. Robin fledglings have this really characteristic speckly appearance, so it makes them really easy to identify. So when you're outside, just listen for that trill, that bird begging sound that the baby birds are making as they're still asking their parents for some food. And when you hear that, you know that you found a new bird family that has just newly fledged. So it has been unrelentingly hot for the last couple of weeks. It's really hard to remember that just 4 weeks ago we had our last frost. But for the past week it's been 90 and above. So in honor of that, let's take a look at some of the Minnesota native prairie plants that love the sun and are in bloom in early June. This is lanceleaf coreopsis, a prairie coreopsis that does well in hot and dry. This is penstemon, and it is one of my favorites. It is reminiscent of snapdragons with that bell-like flower. This is blue flag iris. It can tolerate some shade and also does well in the damper areas of your yard. This is gaillardia, and it is another one of my favorites. I just love the vibrant blooms of this shrub rose, and it is a huge attractor for bees of all descriptions. This is false indigo, so it grows in these clumps that then start to resemble a bush. It also does well in some of the damper areas of the yard. Their flowers are shaped so that they need to be pushed apart to get at the nectar inside, and that task requires a little heft. So it's the larger bumblebees that favor this flower and push those petals apart. They have the strength to do so. But it doesn't stop some of the smaller bees from giving it a try. Keep going there, little guy. There's a rich reward for your effort. Beard tongue is another pollinator favorite. This is another kind of penstemon, and you can see that its flowers and stems have these little hairs on them. This is spiderwort, and it is another one of my favorites. I just love the bright fuchsia blooms and those triangular shaped flowers. This is another pollinator favorite as well. As for harvest, the chamomile is in bloom. I pick the flowers off the chamomile, dry them, and use them to make tea. So thank you everybody for joining me, and I hope you join me again.